Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Sunday morning 11 o'clock service. I've been asked, people have been asking me, especially this week, if we were going to hold church back in the church auditorium. And I'll just kind of probably clarify things. We are probably going to be in this building all summer, okay? Just because we're trying to maintain that 6-foot distancing, and we're able to kind of do that, spread out a little bit. There's an area here where it's comfortable in here today, so we've tried to dress it up, make it look a little more like a church auditorium, and it's a multi-purpose building. So anyway, that's what we're doing. And if you are more comfortable, if you wear a mask a lot and you want to wear a mask, if you in no way am I trying to discourage you to wear one, but if you're comfortable not wearing one, I want you to be comfortable doing that too. If you want to shake hands with someone, feel free to do that. If you're not into shaking hands just yet, just and we'll understand. If I stick my hand out and shake hands and you go like that, I know you're not mad at me. You're just trying to be careful. If you're into hugging, you might want to make sure the person you're hugging is into hugging too. Because you don't want to do anything to upset someone, so we're just being cautious, being careful. So take your song sheet there. You've got one of those. We're going to sing a little bit. I'm going to have you stand for this first song. I want you to move just a little bit. And that way, in a little bit, when you sit down, you'll be glad you brought that tent chair with you. Over the sunset mountains, someday I'll softly go to the arms of Jesus, in His loving song. Over the sunset mountains, heaven waits for thee. Over the sunset mountains, Jesus, my Savior, I'll see. Falling will all be ended, shadows will flee away, sorrow will be forgotten. Oh, what a wonderful day. Over the sunset mountains, waits for thee. Over the sunset mountains, Jesus, my Savior, I'll see. Let's remain standing for a prayer. Thank you, Lord, for Sunday morning. Seems like a long time from one subject to the next. When we see all the disturbing things that are going on around the world and in our own country, it disturbs us. Lord, at times it brings fear. We don't know what's going to happen next. The devil loves to get into our hearts and minds and into our thinking and to destroy the peace that you bring. Lord, we're gathered here together, rejoicing over the fact that we know you, that we have your word. And even now in our society, there are places that are removing Bibles and saying we can't sell that because that way of thinking that's advertised and promoted in that book is wrong. And Lord, we know, just help us to rest in your word and know that your word is the truth. And that regardless of all the storms and what might be raging around us in society, it's moments like this when we're gathered together in your name that there's peace. We're with you. Give us courage, give us strength, give us wisdom to face what might be coming down the road. We don't know. But you're already there. You live outside of time. And you've predicted what would happen. You know what's going to happen. You've already been through it. And Lord, just we ask that you be with us. We know that your word says you promise never to leave us nor forsake us. You'll be with us to the end of the world. So, Lord, by the end of this service, may we be encouraged and strengthened as we go to our homes and out to work, wherever we go this week. May we feel refreshed, revitalized, and energized for you. To live for you, may the devil be defeated. May we not be fearful, but instead have your peace that the world can't even explain. They don't understand. Help us to be concerned about our lost friends, family members who don't know you, but Lord, we want to take them to heaven with us. We can't take our stuff, but we can take people. Help us to really be concerned about our loved ones. Bless our time together, we pray it all in Jesus' name. Thank you for seeing me. Sing a little bit more there. You've got your song sheet. Oh, what a wonderful, wonderful day. Day I will never forget. After I wandered in darkness away, Jesus, my Savior, I met. Oh, what a tender, compassionate friend. He met the need of my heart. Shadows that sky with joy and pride, he made all the darkness depart. Heaven came down and glory filled my soul, filled my soul. When at the cross the Savior made me whole, made me whole. My sins were washed away, and my life was turned to day. Heaven came down and glory filled my soul, filled my soul. Born of the Spirit from light from above, into God's family divine. Justified holy through Calvary's love, oh, what a standing is mine. And the transactions of quickly was paid, when as a sinner I came. Took up the offer of grace he did proffer, he saved me from presence dear me. Heaven came down and glory filled my soul, filled my soul. When at the cross the Savior made me whole, made me whole. My sins were washed away, and my life was turned to day. Heaven came down and glory filled my soul, filled my soul. We're going to slow it down. Some of you right now are looking. Okay, so we're going to sing this last verse real slow, okay? Now I will hope that will surely, and that's good to know. After the passing of time, I have a future in heaven. So that's good to know. There is vengeance sublime, and it's because of that wonderful day when the cross might be. I'm 7 years old. Riches eternal and blessings supernal from His precious hand I receive. Heaven came down and glory filled my soul, filled my soul. When at the cross the Savior made me whole, made me whole. My sins were washed away, and my life was turned to day. Heaven came down and glory filled my soul, filled my soul. Oh, that's good singing. I can't hardly hear you up here, but I'm sure you're singing.
I looked around to see if mouths here.
Yeah, that's how I know you're singing, because I see the mouth move, so you must be singing. But from where we're at, I can't really hear you. I can't, if I just stop playing, could y'all, let me hear you sing the chorus. I'll get you going. I want to hear it, make sure. Heaven came down and glory I want you to, I'm going to talk just a little bit, and then Wendy's going to come, and she's going to sing, I'm going to play. But we're going to kind of split our message a little bit into two parts. And I want to talk to you to start with. I want to give you a couple of examples of fear. You know, I've read somewhere, I have not gone through the Bible and actually marked the spots for myself. I just had to trust what someone else had done. But it's out there that there are in the Bible that 365 times that the Bible says not to be afraid or fear not. And so 365, that's how many days are in a year. And so that's a really nice thought that God has put it in His Word 365 times, one for each day. And if you're a real warrior, then right now you have figured out, what about leap year? There's an extra day, 360. So if you want to be afraid, one day out of the year, well, every 4 years, go for it. Okay? But the 365 other days, relax and don't be afraid. I was thinking, I've mentioned this when the law was passed in Daniel's time. He was down in Babylon. He was in a foreign country. He'd been there for years. He was trying to live for his God. And everybody that was a foreigner in that foreign country knew that he was living for God, because when they attacked him through his God. And they went to the king and had that law passed that for 30 days nobody could ask anything, nobody could petition anybody or any God or anything, anyone, except for the king. The king, they appealed to the king's pride, and the king thought, well, I'm the man. And he passed it into law. And they knew they were the enemies of Daniel, and they were thinking, we got him out because we know what he's going to do. Daniel didn't disappoint them. They knew what he was going to do. And I pictured in my mind, Daniel comes into the presence of the king, and he hears the new law that's been passed. And, in our society right now, there are laws that people are trying to pass and defund the police, and just, some silly things that, they want to do away with laws and, eliminate things. And we need law, we need order. If there are no laws, imagine if there weren't any police and you knew. Abraham, how fast would you be going if you knew there aren't any speed limits? Marissa, you're really afraid, aren't you?
Yeah.
I thought, not just young guys like Abraham and Isaac and Micah, and you young guys up here, Alec, you young guys, but if there weren't any laws on how fast you could go, how fast, what would it look like on highways? And then once that started, there'd be all kinds of accidents everywhere. And then the police, there's no, every man, well, it's your fault. Oh, it's your fault. Well, they might be out on the hillside throwing rocks at each other. Or worse yet, beating each other down with a big club that they found in the woods. We as human beings, we need laws. God gave us the 10 Commandments. If you just kept everything straight and said, I'll just follow those 10, man, everything would be great. But we can't do it. We struggle, and so we have officers in place that kind of maintain and uphold those laws. And so when those men in Daniel's day, when they got that king to make that law, nobody could ask help or petition anyone but the king. And Daniel comes in, and they're looking at him. They know they got him. And Daniel's, I know what I got to do. This man's law doesn't change my attitude towards God. You went home, opened up the window, like you always did, prayed towards God. And they knew we got him. They had him arrested, brought in, and the king, he was sorry. He knew he'd been had. Daniel was his friend. And yet the law was the law. He'd written the law, so they had to throw Daniel down in that den of lions. And the Bible doesn't say it was a lion's den. See, if you get thrown down into the lion's den, that lion's den could be empty. Well, it doesn't say it that way. It says he was put into the den of lions. See, the lions were there. And they threw him down in there and slid a big rock over top of the entrance. It's like a downward dugout hole that the lions, every half starved down in. You throw somebody in there, and maybe before they even hit the bottom, they're being caught and ripped apart. And Daniel spends the night down there. The king gets up early the next day, goes and has the big rock moved out of the way, and hovers down there. Oh, Daniel, is your God? Is he big and powerful like you say he is? He's been able to save your life? And Daniel hollers up, I love Daniel. Oh, king, live forever. That's what he said. Yeah, things are great. It didn't matter what Daniel was faced with. He just did what he knew to do. And sometimes in our lives, we're put in spots where we struggle. I was thinking back when I was a young man of 18. I know that, you can't even imagine that be at 18. And I was a college student down in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I was going to Tennessee Temple University, Christian college. And Tennessee Temple had been there for about 40 years, I think, at the time. It had started like a really small college, and it had grown. And Tennessee Temple was situated in the middle of part of downtown Chattanooga. Chattanooga is a pretty big city. And Tennessee Temple was in what you would call not the best neighborhood. It wasn't the absolute slums, but it was kind of a rough neighborhood. But Tennessee Temple had bought up so many blocks of the city, and they had erected great big buildings and things like that. If you stayed basically on campus right there on 6 or 7 blocks of the city, you were right there on campus. And out towards the outskirts of that, they had bought houses. And the houses weren't actually maybe the best condition, big 2- or 3-story homes, and they were using those houses to house the students until they tore some of those houses down and built in yet another college building. And when I first went off to Tennessee Temple, I actually stayed. I roomed in one of those big old houses. And I had a room all to myself upstairs. There were, 6, 8 other college guys. We all stayed in that house together. Everybody had their room, or a couple of them roomed together, and come and go as we pleased and everything like that. So, but I remember during that first year, there was a man that went around. He was known as the tennis shoe rapist. He wore tennis shoes. They had a description. They had pictures of him. No one had yet been able to identify him. He was a tall black fella. And he wore tennis shoes. And he went around and he had raped 6 or 8 people, women there in the area. And I remember the Tennessee Temple girls at the college, they were petrified. They were scared to death. And they actually encouraged the young men of the college to escort the young girls back to their dorms where they stayed. Now, the girls were all housed in the real nice dormitories, the big brick buildings, tall, 3, 4, 5 stories tall. And they had somebody that was manning the door. And especially during that time. But you didn't see Tennessee Temple girls walk in the neighborhood, even though they were in the middle of campus. They were afraid. And that went on for about 3 or 4 months before they finally made an arrest and caught the guy that was the tennis shoe rapist there down in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And even, we fellas in that house made sure that the doors were locked. It made you uneasy. And that was 42 years ago. And so 42 years ago, the uneasiness of, maybe you feel a little different now when you get ready to go to bed. You go and you lock the door and you make sure that the bolt's locked there in the house. Maybe you didn't really do that a whole lot before, but now you find yourself a little more apprehensive than you used to be. And so that fear is creeping in. I remember years ago when the sniper down in the D.C. area, he was killing people out of the trunk of a car. They finally caught that guy, and he had the vehicle set up, and he was using a rifle. shooting out of a closed trunk area in his vehicle. People were afraid. You couldn't even go to a gas station and get your gas. People were afraid to get gas because they didn't know, that you'd get out and look around. I remember, when I was in Chester, which was not too far, an hour from D.C., and I was going around shooting people all over different areas. And I remember that feeling of uneasiness when I get out to gas up. And depending on where you were, if you weren't maybe in the best area, you didn't gas all the way up. You just got a little bit of gas, but even then, you just didn't know. That fear was creeping in until they caught that down. I want you to look at one scripture, and then we're going to sing a little bit, and then we'll get back to looking at scripture. I want you to look in your Bibles at Job. Job chapter number 1. I want you to see, even in the man Job, his life, there were some apprehensions and fear there in Job's life. Job was a man of God. And so for us to walk around and say, well, I'm not afraid of anything. I don't believe that. Fear creeps in on everybody. God doesn't say to us, he doesn't say, oh, I don't have to tell you don't be afraid because I know you're never afraid. He tells us fear not. The reason he tells us fear not is because we're afraid. The reason he tells us don't be afraid is because we're afraid. And there's a verse in Scripture that says, what time I am afraid, I will trust in thee. And so that verse tells us there are going to be times when I'm afraid. And so again, that verse says, what time I am afraid, I will trust in thee. And so the next time the fear creeps in on your life, instead of letting fear just ravage you and take control, make just fear, you're just frozen and paralyzed with fear. Instead of that happening, you just need to turn to the Lord. So Lord, help me. I'm sure when Daniel was thrown down into that den of lions, he just trusted the Lord. He trusted the Lord when he went home and prayed. Look at Job chapter 1. I want you to consider something about Job here. It says, verse 1, there was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job. And that man was perfect and upright. That meant his lifestyle was, I am living for God. And one that feared God and eschewed evil, or he avoided evil. And there were born unto him 7 sons and 3 daughters. He had 10 kids. Imagine that. 10 kids. You got 4. Double that, and then half of that again. He had 10 kids. His substance also was 7,000 sheep and 3,000 camels and 500 yoke of oxen. That's 1,000 oxen and 500 she-asses and a very great household, so that this man was the greatest of all the men of the East. This guy had some stuff. And his sons went and feasted in their houses, every one his day. It's like his birthday. And sent and called for their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. And so the 10 kids would get together, and they were just having a good time in life. And it was so, when the days of their feasting were gone about, that Job sent and sanctified them, and rose up early in the morning, and offered burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, it may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Thus did Job continually. This was a habit that Job had. He was anxious. If there was anything in Job's life that resembled fear, it was this thought. I wonder what my kids are up to. I sure hope my kids aren't dishonoring God. If Job was afraid of anything, that was it. And it caused Job to lose some sleep. It would cause Job to get up early in the morning. Maybe you parents are right now you're thinking, yeah, I've been there and done that. You've got up early and you're uneasy about what your kids are doing, and you pray for them. That's what Job was doing. He was talking to God. See, Job knew, he knew, I am anxious and I'm a little afraid. I've got 10 kids, and they're enjoying life. I sure hope they're doing the right thing. And his anxiousness and his fear that he had about it, he took it to God. That's the key. He took it to God, and it was constant. I know that feeling. You parents, I'm sure you know that feeling. It doesn't do your heart good when you're talking with your kids and your kids kind of openly tell you something about their relationship with God. I was just, maybe I told you this, but I was talking with Jeff, my son. He's almost 32 now, or maybe he's 32. He might be almost 33. I'm losing track. But I was talking to him about his long ride that he had to work and how I was trying to encourage him to talk to the Lord and use some of that ride time instead of just listening to the radio. He likes sports radio and talk radio. Instead of doing all that, he could talk. And he just said, oh, I do that every day. My way to work, I talk to God. You know what that did to my heart? That made me feel good inside. It's like, yeah, that's good to hear. He's considering God. And so, on that thought, all you young people that I see scattered around the room, don't get so busy that you don't have time to talk to God. Talk to God. You'll be surprised how talking to God and keeping God in front of your mind will help you when you are tempted to get involved and say and do something that's not God-honoring, God-pleasing. Because you've been talking to God and He's right in front of your mind. It's like He's a spiritual billboard. Hey. And He'll put the brakes on for you, and you'll be able to stop. And just not you young people, though. I'm speaking to you young people. I want you to know I'm for you. I hope all you young people here would consider me to be your friend. What you call buddy. Buddy is someone that you can pal around with, and you're laughing and cut up about all kinds of, some of what you all might find humorous, I might not find it too funny. Like your buddy. But I'm your friend. And what is a friend? A friend is somebody that will steer you, that's concerned about you, and will steer you away from a bad cliff edge. Sometimes young people don't look too far down the road. I've been down the road a little bit. I hope I get to go down the road quite a few more years, but I've been down the road 61 times. And so I've seen some stuff, and if I can help you, I hope. If you're battling something, if you're struggling with something, I would welcome you. You could text me, you could call me on the phone. I'd love to talk with you, encourage you, and I want you to know I'm in your corner. I'm behind you. I love you guys. And so Job, he was loving his kids. And he was constantly thinking, okay, maybe they're just not doing just right. But Lord, you help me, please. He was praying for his kids, and it made a difference for Job. So Wendy's going to come. She's going to sing. You can take your Bibles, and while we're doing a number, you can turn in your Bibles to Acts chapter 16. Be ready when we look at that.
sweet, sweet honey on my lips, like the sound of a symphony to my ears, like holy water on my skin. I don't wanna abuse your grace. God, I need it every day. It's the only thing that ever really makes me wanna change. I don't wanna abuse your grace. God, I need it every day. It's the only thing that ever really makes me wanna change. I don't wanna abuse your grace. God, I need it every day. It's the only thing that ever really makes me wanna change. I don't wanna abuse your grace. God, I need it every day. It's the only thing that ever really makes me wanna change. Your forgiveness is like sweet, sweet honey on my lips, like the sound of a symphony to my ears, like holy water. Your forgiveness is like sweet, sweet honey on my lips, like the sound of a symphony to my ears. Oh, it's like holy water on my skin. Yeah, it's like holy water on my skin. Oh, it's like holy water.
All right, we're looking a little further into what people do with fear. And so we're looking at Acts chapter 16. And this is a story where Paul and Silas are approached by a young girl that she actually has a demon inside of her. And she's proclaiming that these men are God's agents. But Paul doesn't like it that this demon is one of Satan's messengers. Now, the message this demon presents is a message, it's the truth. Paul and Silas are indeed, they are God's agents, they're his messengers. But Paul sees and recognizes God's truth and his message, it never mixes well with the devil's message. So you keep the two separate. You know, I've seen you can't be friends with God and hold hands with the devil. It just doesn't work. And so Paul turned and rebuked this demon that was in this girl. Her masters were using this demon-possessed girl to foretell. She was telling the future for people, and they were making money off this young girl. And the demon was cast out by Paul, and these men recognized right away their meal ticket was gone. Their livelihood was ruined. And they had Paul arrested. I mean, people were there was a riot in a sense. People were in an uproar. And look at verse 22 of Acts 16. It says in verse 22 that the multitude rose up together against them, and the magistrates rent off their clothes and commanded to beat them. So Paul and Silas had their clothes ripped off of them. There was a riot. There was a group of people screaming and yelling at them, and even the magistrates, those that you would think would be in authority and say, stop this. They didn't stop it, they enabled it. Sounds very similar to what is going on in some places in our very country. Rioting, and so Paul and Silas, they're the target of it. They're being attacked and beaten. And it says they tore their clothes off and commanded to beat them. It doesn't even tell us how many stripes, it just says And when they had laid many stripes upon them, they beat them and beat them. They cast them into prison, charging the jailer to keep them safely. We're not done with these guys. We might beat on them again tomorrow. We might finish them tomorrow. We're going to lock them up, and they were very serious about it. Look what they did. The jailer said, verse 24, who, having received such a charge, thrust them into the inner prison and made their feet fast in stocks. They had blocked long pieces of wood that had an opening for your feet, or in your hands. Most of the time they put your feet in set, and your hands in the set, and they put your ankles in those openings, and would fold that top half of the piece of wood, and then they lock and chain that all together, and your feet you were immobilized. And then they did the same thing with your hands. Paul and Silas were not getting away. I mean, it was a done deal. They locked them up in the safest part of the most guarded part of the jail. Look what they were doing in the middle of all that, verse 25. At midnight, Paul and Silas cried. Is that what it says? They prayed. They talked to God. That's what they did. And after they talked to God, then it says, and they sang praises to God. My goodness. After being the victim of a riot, a multitude of people gagging up on them, beating them, stripping their clothes off on them, beating them unmercifully, putting them in jail and locking them down in the stocks, they're singing. They're singing. Thinking about God. And the prisoners heard them. That's important too. See, the people around you, the way you react, if you let fear get the best of you and you forget your relationship with God when you're in the middle of all this social distancing and the rioting and the protest and all the things that are going on, if you forget your relationship with God, your people around you are watching. I thought he knew God. I thought she was a Christian. What's going on? Man, all the other prisoners they were listening. It was making a profound impression on them. They knew who Paul and Silas. They heard. The news spread. They knew. Man, those two guys. Man, they riled some people up. They got beat up and beat, and they locked them up. And listen to the guys. They were there singing, talking about God. And what happened? 26 says, suddenly there was a great earthquake, so that the foundations of the prison were shaken. And immediately all the doors were opened, and everyone's bands were loosed. All the prisoners. And the keeper of the prison, waking out of his sleep, he thought everything was pretty secure. And seeing the prison doors open, he knew. He was going to be held accountable. He knew what was going to happen. He drew out his sword and would have killed himself, supposing that the prisoners had been fled. He figured they were all gone. But Paul cried with a loud voice, saying, do thyself no harm, for we're all here. Think about that. All the other prisoners, they were busy listening. They were so busy being impacted by what Paul and Silas had been doing. Even though their prison doors opened, no one ran. That was a miracle in itself. The minute the prison doors opened, if you were a prisoner there, you would have been jumping up and running for the door. But not that night. They were wanting to hear more. And it says, that the prison guard, then he called for a light, verse 29. And he sprang in, came trembling, and fell down before Paul and Silas. And he brought them out, and he said, sirs, what must I do to be saved? That's not just a question out of the random blue. That prison guard was listening too. And I don't know what all Paul and Silas had been saying, but they had been saying and talking about Jesus enough that this prison guard, he'd heard enough, and when the earthquake came, he knew that, wow, this God that these two men know, he's the real deal. And I want him. What must I do to be saved? And they spake unto him, they said, believe on the Lord Jesus Christ, and thou shalt be saved in thine house. It starts with you. And if it makes a difference in your life, it'll impact your family. And he spake unto him the word of the Lord to all that were in his house. And look at the end result. result. He took them the same hour of the night, washed their stripes, and he was baptized. He get all his family straightway immediately. The way Paul and Silas handled fear. They were beaten up by a mob. And then the judge, those that were in charge, instead of protecting them and helping them, they said, yeah, let's beat them some more. Strip their clothes off of them and pound them some more, lock them up. And now, at the end here, this prison guard is accepting Jesus. He's become a believer, and it's impacted his whole family. And they're washing the wounds of Paul and Silas. Boy, it all started, though, when Paul and Silas prayed. And then they began to worship the Lord. You know, fear. God, we serve a big God. God can, we've said this many times, God brings good. He brings good and bad. Jacob, the father of Joseph and all of his 11 brothers, when the brothers came back from Egypt, they said, the man down in Egypt wants our baby brother Benjamin. He wants him to come down. And the dad was afraid. He didn't want to send Benjamin down there. And you know what he was afraid of? He's afraid of death. I've already lost my favorite son, Joseph. He thought he had been killed by a wild beast. That's what his other boys had promoted and told him. And he was just sure, I'm afraid. If I let Benjamin go down there, I don't want to lose my second son that I love so much. He let him go. And it all worked out that in the end, God took care of the whole family. He overcame that fear by trusting the Lord, and God brought good things. Remember the story? You can go in your Bibles to John chapter 14. That'll be the last scripture we'll look at today. While you're turning to John 14, remember David? David showed up there at the battlefront. Goliath was out there making all these boasts, blaspheming God and mocking Israel. And man, when he went out, showed up out there, all the soldiers of Israel, everybody was running and hiding behind a tree or a bush, wherever they could hide. David was like, what in the world is going on? And he saw big old Goliath out there, and he heard what he had to say. He's looking around. David, normally he would have been afraid. But he remembered. Time the bear came, time the lion came, God was with him. He was able to defeat the bear and the lion, and he knew God didn't help him. And when he ended up in front of King Saul, he told King Saul, God's helped me. He'll help me defeat this Philistine giant too. And King Saul blessed him and said, may God be with you. Saul wasn't going. He was afraid. David's brothers, they weren't going. They were afraid. All the army, they were all afraid. David stepped out there on the battlefield. Goliath, he was making fun. Here comes David. Here comes this young boy. And he's got a stick, a staff, a shepherd's staff in his hand. And Goliath mocked. He said, what am I, some kind of a dog? If you come after me, you're going to hit me with a stick? This is a battle, son. We're about to do hand-to-hand combat. And you're bringing a stick? Man, I'm going to wipe you out. Remember you know what David said? This is what he told Goliath. He said, you come to me with a sword and a spear and a shield. But I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. David said, today, the Lord's going to give you into my hands. And I'm going to take your head, and I'm going to feed your carcass with birds. Ooh, sound like big talk for such a young boy. He's only half the size. It's not even half the size of big old Goliath, but you know the end of the story. He took his head and brought it back to camp like a trophy. Big old head of Goliath. Whoa. And it was all because David insisted in his heart that I'm not going to be afraid, I can trust the Lord. What time I'm afraid, I will trust in thee. Now, we're looking at John 14, and this is the first couple verses are very familiar verses that we hear a lot of times. These are verses that are read and used in the funeral setting. When we are faced with death and dying, and the death of a loved one and disappointment, we're fearful in a sense. And in this story, Jesus is telling his men that the thing that they've been enjoying for 3.5 years, traveling around, and they've been with the Son of God. And Jesus is letting them know it's all going to come to an end now, and I have to leave. He knows he's going back to heaven, but he knows before he goes back to heaven, he must suffer and die, go to Jerusalem and give his life there on the cross, and rise again the third day, and then show himself to crowds to prove that he conquered death in the grave. But before all that, he's talking with these men, and they're really, really distraught. Look at verse 1, John 14. Jesus says to them, let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God. Believe also in me. See, they were troubled. They were fearful. They didn't know what was going to happen. Right now, you might be fearful. You don't know what's going to happen. Listen to what Jesus says to his men. He says, in my Father's house are many mansions. And that word mansions it means an added-on room to an existing home. And sometimes we picture the word mansion. We see this great big pillar front stuff with big porches and big pillars. Man, I'm going to get me one of them when I get up there. That's not what that word means. It's an added-on room to an existing home. But if it's an added-on room, you know what that tells me? God wants me there, and he's made a spot. He's added on a room for me. Many mansions. There are many added-on rooms to the Father's house. Jesus right now is still adding on rooms for all of us who have trusted in him, put our faith in him. That's a good thought. And that's what Jesus is explaining and telling them, so they don't have to be troubled or fearful. He says, in my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. So he said, I'm telling you the truth. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there you may be also. Well, that's a good thought right there, that where he is, you and I, we can be there with him. And that's the best place. Wow. Just feel really, really safe and secure. But let's go on into the chapter now. Look at verse 16. We're looking, if you have a Bible that's got the red letter edition, you can tell that it's still Jesus talking to his men that are troubled and fearful. He's trying to alleviate their fears. In verse 16, he says, I will pray the Father, and he shall give you another comforter, that he may abide with you forever. And remember that word, another comforter, it implies another one just like me. And of course, Jesus is speaking of the Holy Spirit, the Holy Ghost. And so Jesus says, I pray, I'm going to talk to my Father, and I'm going to ask him to give you another one just like me. I'm leaving. But I'll pray to my Father, and he's going to give you another one just like me that'll be with you. And sure enough, God's Holy Spirit indwells in us. That brings comfort. That's why it says another comforter. 17 says, even the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it seeth him not, neither knoweth him. But ye know him, for he dwelleth with you, and shall be in you. There's that promise. God's Spirit will be inside of us. And so you and I, you people here, you've trusted Jesus Christ as your Savior, right where you sit, God is sitting there exactly right now. He's a comforting God, bringing peace to you, while the world is in a total uproar around you. Look at the next verse. Jesus says, I will not leave you comfortless. I will come to you. And so he makes two statements there. I'm coming for you. And Jesus is coming back for you, not those who put their faith and trust in Jesus. But in the meantime, Jesus said, I won't leave you comfortless. I won't leave you empty-handed. I'll give you what you need. You need more of me. And so I'm God. I'm God the Son, and I'll give you God the Spirit, another comforter just like me. And then go on into the chapter in verse number 26. Still speaking in the red. It's written in red. And so Jesus is still speaking. He says, but the Comforter, which is the Holy Ghost, whom the Father will send in my name, he shall teach you all things and bring all things to your remembrance, whatsoever I have said unto you. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. And so as Jesus is talking to his man, he tells them, don't let this trouble you. Don't let this make you afraid. I won't leave you at the end. I'll leave you with my Spirit. I don't know what you do, but as we get into the next year, every year I find a calendar somewhere, maybe at the bank, they give me one, or I buy one at the store, and know what I'm going to use it for. And most calendars have December on there from the previous year. You tear that off, turn it over, you hang it up. It says January 2020. And boy, when we put up that calendar, 2020, January 2020, we had no idea what the first half of 2020 was going to look like. Wow. My son sent me a little post the other day. He texted me this picture. It showed me the score, I guess, during the third quarter of the NFL Super Bowl game a couple years ago when the Atlanta Falcons were playing the New England Patriots. And the score was Atlanta 28, New England 3. That was in the third quarter, 28-3. It looked like it was over. I mean, if you were a New England fan, your team was getting pounded, 28-3. But if you're an NFL fan, any at all, or especially if you're a New England fan like Paul is, then you know that New England came back and won that game after being down 28-3. And Jeff sent me that message. It said something to the effect, you never know what the second half of the year might look like. That's true. And so we're all the way up into the middle of the first half of 2020. And man, we've been taking a pound. But I'm here to tell you, we don't know what the second half is going to look like. God can turn this around, and even if the world was in a total chaos, he could turn this around for you and I, and we need to understand that when Jesus was telling his men there, he's still speaking to you and I today. Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. He ended there in verse 27, and he said, let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. Let it not be afraid. Let's have a word of prayer. We're going to sing one last song. Thank you, Lord, for this time, for your word. It's not my words that are going to bring comfort. It's the word of God. You're a great, great Savior, Jesus. Thank you for loving us so much that you leave heaven and you come and go through all the beatings and mocking and torment and crucifixion just to save us. And you rose from the dead. We believe that. 3 days later, you conquered death and the grave. And your word says, because you live, we too shall live. And we've just read from John 14, where your men were quite troubled and upset and fearful. And you reassured them and said, I won't leave you comfortless. Now you've left your Spirit with us. Thank you so much for the Holy Spirit that indwells us this morning. Lord, we know that fear comes because we are but dust. We're weak. Help us to know when that fear comes, what to do. Go to you in prayer. Sing praises. Talk to you. Turn our focus off the fearful thing and turn it on you. That's what we need. So encourage us this week. Comes to live for you. We pray it all in Jesus' name. And all God's people said, amen. Let's stand to our feet, take your song sheet. And we'll just sing this last one a cappella. I'm not going to grab the guitar there. And hopefully you know this little chorus. If not, we're going to sing it through twice. After the first time, you'll pick it up. You'll pick it up. It will be worth it all when we see Jesus. Life's trials will seem so small when we see Christ. One glimpse of His dear face, all sorrow will erase. So bravely run the race till we see Christ. It will be worth it all when we see Jesus. Life's trials will seem so small when we see Christ. One glimpse of His dear face, all sorrow will erase. So bravely run the race till we see Christ. God bless you. Have a safe afternoon.